They fired me the same day I closed a $12 million deal, so I turned their biggest clients into mine and watched them beg me to come back. My name is Ellis Granger, 43 years old, Director of Client Relations at Meriton Global Logistics in Denver. 10 years of loyalty, strategy, and sacrifice, and yet I had never heard Chairman Randall Bloom use that tone before. Not with me. Not ever. It was the kind of voice you use when you're about to put down a loyal dog. The mahogany boardroom smelled of wealth and deceit. It was 3 p.m. on a Thursday. I still had the dust of Houston's tarmac on my jacket. I had flown back early after securing the biggest contract in company history. 18 months, $12 million in revenue. And Continental Shipping's CEO had made it crystal clear, we want Ellis to handle our account personally. All morning, my phone had been buzzing with congratulations, calls, texts, backslaps from people who once called me a mentor, a friend. Now, Bloom sat across from me, eyes cold, lips pressed in a corporate smile that didn't reach his cheeks. The Outlook invited called this a strategic growth presentation, mandatory attendance, the kind of vague title they use when something ugly is about to happen. I should have known something was wrong when my assistant Janet couldn't meet my eyes as she handed me the printed agenda. She'd been with Meriton for 22 years. That woman always knew where the wind was blowing long before it touched the rest of us around the table. The board members sat like mannequins. Gregory Williams, our CFO, kept checking his Rolex. Patricia Hayes, head of operations, was studying her fingernails like they held classified information. None of them would meet my eyes. They didn't have to. I knew when I joined Meriton we were barely scraping by $30 million a year in local freight and warehouse storage. We were regional, small time. I changed that. I spent weekends at industry conferences, flew out for client dinners on my dime, answered midnight calls when shipments got stuck at the border or customs fell apart. I turned handshake deals into seven-figure contracts. I've built relationships, not accounts. Relationships. Continental Shipping, Morrison Manufacturing, Hartwell Industries. These companies trusted me, not a logo on a box. And now I was about to be erased. Bloom cleared his throat and smiled, that same polished smile. You see, right before someone sells you a lie, we have some exciting news to share about the future direction of the company. I felt it then, that sinking gut punch feeling. The same one I got when my ex-wife told me she'd been thinking about us. The same one when my dad called to say the doctors had found something on his scan. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I saw the Denver skyline stretching under the October sky. 10 floors down, traffic moved like blood through veins, the world oblivious that mine was about to implode. I came to Meriton straight out of the Army at 20. Logistics background. No degree, no plan. Just grit and a need to build something my old man would be proud of. He worked construction his whole life, came home with concrete dust in his hair and steel in his spine. Find something that matters, he told me when I got discharged. Work isn't just a paycheck. Build something that lasts. Why did solving logistics sound simple, getting things from point A to point B, but throw in weather, customs, driver shortages, equipment failures, and suddenly you're a firefighter without water. I was damn good at it, but I was better at the thing no one could automate. 5 years in, I was handling our biggest clients. 10 years in, I was bringing in the biggest clients. Bloom was different back then, hungrier. He used to walk the warehouse floor, knew drivers by name, and showed up at midnight to oversee off. But somewhere along the way, he stopped getting his hands dirty. Traded steel-toed boots for synergies and stock projections. Then came Sean Eastman, a Harvard MBA with a last name that carried shipping royalty. His father ran an East Coast empire of cargo firms. Sean was connected in a tailored suit. Bloom brought him in 3 months ago as a strategic consultant. He said he wanted to understand the client landscape. What he wanted was my client list. I noticed him lurking during meetings I wasn't invited to, asking Janet for account data late at night. She told me casually, like it didn't matter, but Janet never says anything casually. Every syllable from her has weight. My ex-wife used to say I was too trusting. You always see the best in people, Ellis, even when they're showing you their worst. Maybe she was right. Bloom opened a folder. Ellis, I want you to meet someone. The door opened. Sean Eastman walked in like he owned the damn building. An expensive suit, confident stride, a 3-second handshake. Just long enough to say, I'm in charge now. I'd seen him around for months, but today, the power dynamic had shifted. The board sat straighter. Bloom smiled wider. Sean will be taking over your position as Director of Client Relations effective immediately. No build-up, no discussion, just a knife between the ribs. The words hit like a punch to the chest. 10 years. Continental Shipping, Morrison, Hartwell. Gone. We appreciate everything you've done for Meriton, Bloom continued, his voice dripping with boardroom empathy. But we need someone with better industry connections to take us to the next level. Nothing personal, it's just business. I looked around the table. Gregory avoided my eyes. Patricia was suddenly fascinated by her phone. These people had toasted me at birthday parties, hugged me when my dad died, told me we were family. Family doesn't do this. Eastman leaned forward, voice smooth as silk. The transition will be seamless. I've already reached out to several key accounts to introduce myself. Continental was very receptive to the change. That stopped me cold. Continental was receptive. The same Continental whose CEO, Tom Morrison, had just closed a handshake deal with me in Houston less than 24 hours ago. The same Tom who invited me to his daughter's wedding. The same Tom who once said, "I don't trust companies, I trust people. And I trust you, Ellis." I stood slowly, straightened my tie, looked Bloom dead in the eyes. "You're right, Randall. Connections are everything in this business." I turned to Eastman. "Best of luck to you, Sean. I'm sure you'll do just fine." Then I walked out. In the elevator, my phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from Tom Morrison, a text from Janet. "They're cleaning out your office." "Sorry, Ellis." I rode past 10 floors of people who believed hard work and loyalty were enough. Past bright-eyed analysts and hungry young execs who thought success came from coffee-fueled hustle and ping-pong tables. By the time I hit the parking garage, I had already made my decision. They wanted to talk about connections. They were about to learn what that meant. That Thursday night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my home office, surrounded by 10 years of business cards, handwritten notes, old contracts, and hard-earned relationships. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that settles in when your phone stops ringing. No congratulatory texts, no midnight emails, just silence. A napkin sat on my desk, scrawled with 3 words in bold black ink: Granger, Logistics. It wasn't just an idea, it was a declaration. Friday morning, 8 a.m. I called Tom Morrison. He picked up on the first ring. "Ellis, thank God, I've been trying to reach you since yesterday. Some guy named Eastman called claiming he's taking over our account. I told him to go to hell, but my procurement team is starting to ask questions. Tom, I need to explain something." I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't hide behind corporate lingo, just told him the truth about the boardroom ambush, about Eastman's takeover, about how Bloom had used me to build the foundation and then discarded me the moment I became inconvenient. Tom listened, silent the entire time, the kind of silence that carries weight. "Those sons of," he muttered when I finished. "After everything you've done for that company, I'm starting my firm. Tom, same service, same team, just without the politics. Count us in. I'll have legal draft the termination letter for Meriton today." Next, I called Patricia Hoffman at Morrison Manufacturing. We'd been through everything together: strikes, hurricanes, port delays, truck accidents. She was the kind of VP who remembered birthdays and stayed up until 3 a.m. with you tracking container movements. When I told her what happened, there was no hesitation. "Ellis, that company would be nothing without you. Morrison is pulling our contract immediately. Let them sue." By noon, I'd contacted 8 of my top accounts. 7 said yes immediately. The 8th, Hartwell Industries. They wanted to talk in person before making a decision. That should have been my first warning. 3:30 p.m. Hartwell headquarters. Expected to see Dave Chen, their longtime logistics manager. Instead, I was met by a kid who looked like he'd just graduated from business school, still clinging to his diploma. He had a tablet, a tie to tight, and eyes that said, "I don't know you, and I don't care. Mr. Granger, I appreciate you taking the time to meet. However, Hartwell Industries has decided to honor our existing contract with Meriton." I blinked. Eastman presented a very compelling case for continuity, he added, reading like it was rehearsed. He had some interesting insights about client poaching and fiduciary responsibility. He slid a legal document across the table. Warning. Hartwell wasn't just staying with Meriton, they were threatening to sue me if I contacted anyone else in their logistics department. Eastman had beaten me there. On the drive home, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Tom Morrison again. "Ellis, we're getting put back. Meriton's legal team is claiming breach of contract. They're threatening to sue for the full 18-month term, $12 million. My board is getting cold feet." Then Patricia Hoffman, same. "Think they're threatening litigation. Our lawyers are concerned." "Ellis, what the hell is going on?" While I'd been shaking hands and making calls, Eastman had been systematically visiting my clients, armed with lawyers and veiled threats. By evening, 5 of the 7 confirmed clients had called back. They were sorry, truly, but they couldn't afford a legal battle, not in this economy. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the napkin again. It looked good in theory, but theory didn't pay legal fees. Theory didn't scare off sharks like Eastman. He had executed a textbook corporate takedown while I was focused on loyalty and relationships. He was weaponizing contracts, intimidating clients, and burning the bridges I had built by hand. But he made one mistake. He assumed I'd fight fair. Saturday morning, I arrived at Janet's house, 2 coffees, a box of pastries from her favorite bakery. She opened the door before I knocked. "They fired me yesterday. No greeting. Just that. 22 years, Ellis. They gave me 2 hours to pack my things. Then they changed the locks." "I'm sorry, Janet. This wasn't supposed to happen." "Oh, honey, I know." We sat at her tiny kitchen table drinking coffee from mismatched mugs. The comfort of familiarity of someone who had been by your side through storms and success. Then she reached under the table and pulled out a manila folder before they walked me out. I found some things. Inside were copies of client files, contacts, contract summaries, personal notes I'd written over the years. "Remember when Eastman started asking questions about your client relationships?" Janet said. "Well, I may have accidentally. They've made copies of everything he requested. Everything. He hadn't stolen my job by chance. He'd studied my methods, analyzed my habits, and mapped my relationships. He came prepared." But Janet had seen what was coming. She always did. And she had receipts. "Look at page 12, she said. "A memo from Bloom to the board, 3 weeks old, subject succession. Planning Director of Client Relations. It outlined a premeditated plan to remove me before Q4 ended and replace me with someone with superior industry connections and family legacy advantages. It criticized my over-personalized approach and warned that clients may be too emotionally attached to a single employee. In short, I was too valuable to control. So I had to go. Page 15 was worse. Financial projections, showing how, once I was gone, Meriton planned to renegotiate client contracts with lower service levels and higher profit margins. The strategy: exploit relationships I built without having to honor the standards I upheld. They were going to milk your clients dry, Janet whispered. Then she pulled out her phone and I may have left it recording in Bloom's office during one of their meetings. The audio was grainy but clear. "Bloom Granger was useful, but he's a liability now. Clients trust him more than the company. That's dangerous. Eastman, my father dealt with this at Eastman Shipping. Sometimes you have to cut out the cancer, even if it hurts short term. That's what I was to them. Useful until I became inconvenient." Janet handed me the phone in silence. "What are you going to do?" I thought of my father, his cracked hands, his honest work. "He taught me loyalty flows both ways," I said quietly. "They want to treat me like a cancer. Then I'll show them what it feels like to be cut out." By Sunday, I had a folder full of proof, a phone full of burned bridges, and a head full of strategy. Eastman had stripped me of position, but not of value. That the relationships were still mine. The trust was still mine. But trust alone doesn't keep the lights on. Granger, logistics sounded good on a napkin, but a napkin doesn't pay for legal counsel or warehouse staff or insurance bonding. I needed infrastructure. I needed a scale. And most of all, I needed someone just as hungry as I was. Monday morning, 7:58 a.m. Velocity Freight Solutions. This is Catherine speaking. "Hi, Catherine. This is Ellis Granger. I'd like to speak with your CEO about a business proposition." Velocity Freight was Meriton's biggest competitor in Denver. Smaller, faster, nimble. Their CEO, Michael Santos, had tried to recruit me twice in the last 5 years. Each time, I'd politely declined. Today, I wasn't looking for a job. I was looking for a partner. 10:30 a.m., a small cafe in Los Santos was already there. No suit, just a button-up jeans and a clear mind. "I heard about Meriton. Eastman pulled the rug out, something like that. You want a job?" I smiled. "No, I want a partnership." That got his attention. "Go on. I bring you $12 million in new business within 60 days, I said. "In return, I get equity and complete autonomy over client relations. No interference, no red tape, no Harvard MBAs micromanaging my playbook." Santos raised an eyebrow. $12 million's a big number. I laid out the list. Continental Shipping, Morrison Manufacturing, Alpine Distribution, Rockwell Freight, Cascade Industries, and more. All the contracts I'd brought to Mayorite and all relationships that still returned my calls. They fired me, but they didn't fire the loyalty I built. Santos stirred his coffee. "Meriton will fight you. Lawsuits, cease and desist orders, scare tactics. Let them." I leaned forward. "Bloom never made me sign a non-compete. Said it was a trust thing, and the clients, they're tired of being treated like metrics instead of partners." I pulled out my phone. Messages from the weekend. "Tom Morrison, ready to move when you are. Patricia Hoffman, we're just waiting on your signal. Dave Chen at Alpine Hartwell caved. We don't call me." 2 clients blinked. I told Santos the rest. "They're looking for someone to believe in again." He studied me like a chess master staring at a final move. "What kind of equity are we talking about?" 20% for the business I bring. In 30% if we hit $15 million by year's end." He laughed. "That's a lot of equity. It's also a lot of business. You want to double Velocity's market share in 1 quarter or not?" We shook hands in the parking lot. By Wednesday, I had a signed agreement. Executive Vice President of Strategic Accounts, Velocity Freight Solutions. By Friday, I was back on the phones. "Tom, it's Ellis. I've got some good news." This time, I wasn't asking clients to take a leap of faith on an unproven startup. I was offering them a fully operational alternative, a competitor with warehouses, fleets, software, compliance, insurance, and now, me. Velocity wasn't just ready, they were hungry. Monday morning, Continental Shipping terminated their Meriton contract. Tuesday, Morrison Manufacturing followed suit. By Thursday, 6 of my former accounts had jumped ship. Each contract signed was more than revenue. It was proof that trust still mattered in this business. Those relationships, once broken, could still be rebuilt if the hands holding them were steady enough. That afternoon, my phone rang. Eastman. Double quotes, we need to talk. No, I said, and hung up. Tuesday, 8 a.m. My office at Velocity. The view overlooked the Denver skyline, facing directly toward Meriton's building, deliberately chosen. Symbolic. The phone rang. His voice was tight, controlled fury hiding behind fake professionalism. You're destroying this company, Ellis. Good morning to you, too, Randall. 18 million in lost revenue in 6 weeks. 18 million sounds like a management problem. We can fix this. Come back, name your price. I paused. I already did. 20% equity, full autonomy, and a public apology. Silence. That's insane. Then I guess we have nothing to discuss. I hung up. Later that week, Gregory Williams, Meriton's CFO, called. Ellis, we need to talk about transition. The board is prepared to make a generous offer. How generous? Your old position, 20% salary increase. Seat on the board. I laughed out loud. Greg, 6 weeks ago, you sat in that room and watched Bloom fire me. You didn't say a word. Now you want me back. Eastman wasn't what we hoped for. No, Greg, he was exactly what you hoped for. You just didn't plan for me. I hung up that night. I drove past Meriton's headquarters. Half the lights were off. The parking lot, once full of overachievers, burning midnight oil, was half empty. The building looked smaller now. 3 months ago, it had felt like everything I'd built lived there now. It was just a hollow box of broken trust and spreadsheet kings who never understood that people were the real product. 3 months later, Velocity Freight's quarterly numbers were in $16.4 million in new revenue. 7 major contracts secured, 2 more in negotiation, and my name, Ellis Granger, no longer floated at the bottom of someone else's org chart. That it sat on the letterhead of every single proposal we sent. I didn't take a victory lap. Instead, I took a deep breath and opened a folder marked Meriton. Janet knocked on my door. Ellis, there's something you should see. She handed me a folded copy of the Denver Business Ledger business section. Front page: Meriton Global Logistics acquired by Eastern Transport Holdings. I stared at it, read the article twice. Eastern Transport had bought them out in a quiet acquisition, citing strategic consolidation. But the truth was written between the lines. The move comes after a challenging fiscal quarter for Meriton, with multiple key account losses and decreased client confidence. Corporate translation: they were bleeding and drowning. Bloom gave a quote. Janet said, pointing to the paragraph. Said the acquisition would create new opportunities for growth. That's corporate for we lost control. I kept scanning the article. No mention of Eastman. What happened to our Harvard friend fired last month? She said it with no satisfaction, no glee. Just the truth. Turns out his father's connections didn't include cleanup services. I closed the paper, folded it neatly. No grin, no celebration. There's no joy in watching something die, even if it betrayed you. Meriton had been my home, my family, my legacy at least. I thought it had. What now? Janet asked. I didn't answer immediately. I thought of the night I watched my father clean dried concrete off his hands, how he once told me, there's honor in building something real, son. Just make sure you're proud to put your name on it. I looked up. We hired them. I said, who? Warehouse, staff, dispatchers, drivers, the ones Bloom forgot. The ones who had nothing to do with this mess. Already on it, she said. 6 resumes on your desk. Velocity Freight wasn't just expanding. We were rebuilding the right way, and I was making damn sure that nobody got left behind this time that evening. 6 p.m. I locked up and drove downtown. Tom Morrison was hosting a client dinner, the kind of event Eastman would have dismissed as a waste of resources. But I knew better. I shook hands with clients I'd known for a decade, shared a laugh, gave a toast. No suits, no pitch decks, no bullet points, just real people, real trust, and real relationships. On my drive home, I passed Meriton's old headquarters. Half the signs were gone. The glow from the building had dimmed, and I realized something important. I hadn't lost my legacy. I had reclaimed it, because legacy isn't about titles, or offices, or logos on glass doors. It's about who shows up when you fall. It's about the clients who still call your number. It's about the assistant who risks her job for you, and the team that follows you into the fire, not because they have to, but because they believe. The next morning, I walked into Velocity Freight's office and saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Loyalty, not as a policy, not as a bullet point, that is a way of doing business. Janet handed me coffee, her eyes full of quiet fire. Client onboarding with Cascade at 10. Alpine's warehouse manager wants a tour. Rockwell sent over their 2025 volume projections. They're doubling down. Good, I said. Let's show them what loyalty looks like. She smiled. Welcome back, Mr. Granger. Final lines, soft, steady tone. I looked out the window toward the Denver skyline. Somewhere across town, Randall Bloom was probably drafting another press release somewhere else. Eastman was rewriting his resume, wondering how it all slipped through his hands. But here we were building something again, not for shareholders, not for quarterly bonuses, but for people, for trust, for the long haul. Because in this business, as in life, relationships are everything, and I'd finally built something worth putting my name on. Granger. Velocity. Legacy earned.